boy, nobody heard that. I'll ring it again. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've had a fun and informative morning, and now we are going to continue with our lunch. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Sal Pizarro, president of the Rotary Club of San Jose, and in addition to this being part of our large club conference, this is also serving as our weekly meeting of the Rotary Club of San Jose. In fact, this is our 5,361st meeting of our club. And at this time, I know, so you're being served lunch. This is, of course, a working lunch, so I expect you to be eating throughout our presentations today. But at this time, I would like to invite you to all stand as I will invite to the stage one of our talented Rotarians, Nicholas Adams, who will be accompanied by pianist Jeremy Harris as we sing God Bless America.
Please join in singing. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. And thank you to Mr. Jeremy Harris on the keys.
I always love standing next to Nicholas when he sings because he makes me sound so much better. I would like to thank at this time our past presidents who you met in our greeting line. It's so wonderful to have them here representing our club. And of course, I'd like to welcome all the large club conference attendees, our Rotarians, and their guests. Thank you for being here with us today. So we have a little bit of club business to go through before we get to our main program. So at this time, I'd like to invite some Rotarians who are going to be receiving their blue badge, which, as you know, means that they've been in our club for a year. Could I have Mark McKenna, Ashley Hopkins-Bass, and Alfredo Beccari please come to the stage? Ashley, I'll ask you to take that one off. And I will hand you this one. Congratulations. Mark? Great. Congratulations to all three of you. This is a great symbol of your commitment to Rotary, and we look forward to having you continue to be an active part of our club for many years to come. Congratulations. Now, this next part, I have to apologize to our visitors from the large club conference because I'm going to talk about a couple of fun things we have coming up that sadly you don't get to go to unless if you want to come back to San Jose next month. Rotarians, next month, of course, we have our International Feast, which is going to be hosted once again by our International Service Committee at the Gordon House. That is taking place October 7th at 6 o'clock. As you know, this is a fantastic spread of foods from all over the world, and it goes to support a great cause, in this case, improving schools in rural El Salvador. So you can sign up for that. It's $60 to attend, and we know that that money is going to go to a great organization. And just a week later, on October 12th, we'll have our 10th annual Lee Weimer's Emerging Artist Awards. This will take place in place of our regular meeting on Wednesday the 12th at the Hammer Theater Center, just about a block away from here. Please be sure to sign up for that, and if you'd like lunch, you'll have to sign up for that separately. But this is one where we want a lot of people to come, so invite your guests. We're going to be handing out our $4,000, $5,000 checks to our awardees this year, who will then be presenting their art, whether it is performance, visual art, or I think in this case we might even have a behind-the-scenes person for theater. So it should be a fascinating program, as it is always, and I hope you can join us then. And now I would like to invite to the stage our former executive director, John Kennett, who will be presenting on why Rotary is amazing.
We asked the large club participants to provide us with highlights from either your centennial project or one of your most successful projects. These samples reflect the wide diversity of projects we received. Please contact the sponsoring club involved if you would like to get more information. First, the Rotary Club of Corpus Christi. They purchased and planted 100 oak trees at a special needs camp after most of the camp's trees were destroyed in 2017 by Hurricane Harvey. Rotary Club of Sacramento. Their Sacramento Century Challenge is their largest fundraiser that nets over $100,000 and has supported other local nonprofits for the past 9 years. This year, more than 1,200 bicycle riders participated. The Rotary Club of Portland. For their centennial project, they provided a $1 million grant to create the Rotary Youth Center at Morrison Child and Family Services. The Rotary Club of Tucson. As part of their centennial celebration, they created and buried a time capsule. And I have heard from a San Jose Rotarian who has moved to Tucson that their auto show in Tucson is actually very awesome. Rotary Club of Long Beach. They built the Storytime Theater and Early Childhood Literacy Center inside the newly built Billie Jean King Library. The Rotary Club of Greenville. They started a new fundraiser last year that involved 250 volunteers. They sold 7,200 tickets to Kringle Holiday Village, and more than 500 children enjoyed a visit with Santa. The Rotary Club of Columbus built the Columbus Rotary Obstacle Course and Fitness Trail inside Scioto Audubon Metro Park that features a variety of physical challenges as well as a quarter-mile running track. Since then, they have added memorial trees along the course, and Rotary volunteers continue to maintain the course. And finally, the Rotary Club of San Jose. We built the Rotary Play Garden in 2015 as our centennial project to serve the needs of children of all abilities. This $6 million project was the first of its kind in Northern California. It is visited by more than 500,000 residents every year and has hosted 3 Rotary International presidents. You will all have the opportunity to visit this facility tomorrow afternoon on the way to the barbecue. After our centennial, our club also decided to publish a book that chronicles our first 100 years. We reviewed over 20,000 photographs and gathered pieces of numerous local sources because the first 60 years of our history was destroyed when there was a fire in the Rotary office in 1973. Copy of these books are given to all of our new members and were given to all of the elected officials in the area.
Thank you, John, and I am just thrilled to see all those different projects from all these clubs, and it's amazing what Rotary can do. Great job. At this time, I'd like to welcome another past president, Karen Sununu Towery, who's going to share her Rotary moment with us. Karen?
Thank you, Sal, and to my fellow Rotarians in San Jose, forgive me because I'm going to repeat a story I've told you before. I'm just going to make 4 points here. I'm going to talk about a Rotary conversation, a Rotoplas mission, my Rotary moment, and a little Rotary karma, which I'm adding to this. At the dawn of the new century, my daughter gave birth to twins. One of the twins, Alexander, had a severe heart anomaly called truncus arteriosus. He was rushed to UC San Francisco Medical Center and treated by a pediatrician specializing in cardiac thoracic problems, and he saved baby Alex's life. After that, I had a Rotary conversation with Dr. Sandy Ellenberg of our club, and I said, gee, this Dr. Reddy, he saved my grandson's life. He came from India, he was educated in India, he came to America to do 2 fellowships and stayed. I want to give back somehow. And from that Rotary conversation, Dr. Ellenberg directed me to Rotoplas, which is a nonprofit connected to Rotary who serves children throughout the world with cleft palate and cleft lip anomalies. So there was a trip scheduled to go to India, and I signed up to go based on this recommendation. The mission was in Karakul, India, in the very southern tip of India. And there, part of the medical team was a woman named Monica Harshman. She was a young, very attractive nurse, and she was working with the students, with the patients. So one day, I'm in the recovery room, and there are many children there who are recovering from surgery. It's hot, it's humid, and in walks Marcia. She doesn't say a word. She sits down, she rolls up one of her pant legs and takes her leg off. Now that was my Rotary moment, because what she was saying to us was, and everyone understood this message, we all have hard times, you can overcome it, and we're here to help you. Now let me fast forward past my Rotary moment to my karma moment. Many years later, my son is at UC Medical Center, and he has just come out of a second surgery for a thyroid cancer. He's fine now, but it was very late at night, and there was nowhere to put him. They had him in the hallway, and we weren't happy. And all of a sudden, guess what? Who came walking down the hall? The nurse from India. And I call that Rotary karma. He got a great room, both kids are doing great, and thank you to Rotary.
Thank you, Karen. As she mentioned, those of us in the Rotary Club of San Jose have heard that story before, but I always love hearing it. Okay, so right now I would like to introduce an introduction. The bulk of our program is going to be a conversation between Janine Pelosi, Chief Marketing Officer of Zoom, and our own past president and conference co-chair, Carl Salas. But to tell you a little bit more about Janine, I would like to bring up Steve Perez, who is the interim president of San Jose State University, the oldest institution of higher learning on the West Coast, older than Berkeley, older than UCLA, older than Stanford. Some of you who are from the Sacramento area could possibly see Steve. He spent about 20 years at Sacramento State, where he was an economics professor and eventually provost. So Steve, why don't you come up and tell us a little bit about Janine, who, by the way, is a San Jose State alum.
Thank you, Sal. And I'm pretty sure you meant that the university was older than Stanford and Berkeley, and not me, although some days I feel that same way. I did appreciate the warm welcome from my Spartan colleagues and Spartan friends. But hello, friends. It is a great day to be in San Jose, and I want to welcome everybody from all over the country. You're not here when it was 109 a week and a half ago or a couple weeks ago. You're here on a beautiful day. It's a great day to be a member of Rotary because we get to be among so many friends and we get to hear about the great work that we're doing as a club. But it's also a great day to be a Spartan, because I get to introduce one of our illustrious alums. Janine Pelosi is Zoom's Chief Marketing Officer, responsible for the company's brand, communications, go-to-market, product marketing, lead generation, and customer marketing, as well as Zoom's online business and its corporate responsibility initiatives under the Zoom Cares Foundation. Janine joined Zoom in March 2015 as head of marketing and built its marketing organization from scratch. She helms the company's bold branding strategy as well as its powerful demand capture and pipeline engines that have fueled Zoom's massive growth in the past 5 years. Janine brought over 15 years of strategic marketing experience to Zoom with an in-depth knowledge of SaaS business models. Prior to joining Zoom, Janine led the worldwide demand generation function for the collaboration business unit of Cisco. She built successful teams and transformative programs at both WebEx, pre-acquisition, and Cisco, garnering a deep knowledge of both e-commerce and direct sales go-to marketing models. In 2020, Janine was named one of the most innovative CMOs in the world by Business Insider, and perhaps my proudest thing about Janine is she graduated from San Jose State University with a BS in marketing in 2006. I also want to extend my personal thanks, as we were talking before we started eating. As a higher ed administrator, I don't know what we would have done in the pandemic without Zoom. We literally would have had to shut down in the spring of 2020, and then probably had to come back much faster than we wanted to. And so it made us able to do our jobs, able to continue teaching our students, and able to continue transforming their lives. So my personal thank you to Janine, and I can't wait to hear what y'all are going to talk about.
Hello. Oh, they're on? I think so.
Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Good.
We're good.
Hey, Janine, I just want to tell everybody how lucky I am. Because as you all know, nobody ever heard of Zoom. I mean, nobody had ever heard of Zoom before the pandemic. You had, obviously, but I didn't. I have a business. I have an engineering business. It's pretty large now. And, but before we get there, I do want to ask you, San Jose State is 3 blocks that way. Zoom is 3 blocks that way. Would you tell us a little bit about, you didn't just have your cap and gown and walk over there. How did you get to Zoom?
I almost did. I was at WebEx. I was telling somebody about a week and a half ago, my last semester, I was so eager to be done, as many are, that I took 21 units and was working almost 40 hours a week at WebEx, and so I'll never forget that. That was a transformative time in my life. But I went directly into the workforce, and I think it was just such a remarkable opportunity. At that time, the business was very small. It was there to share PowerPoints. Really wasn't about video, right? It was about sharing the need, so you didn't have to go down and drive and share that PowerPoint. So it wasn't really video first. That's where, if I fast forward to my time at Zoom, the video component came in. And I have to say, through the pandemic, which was almost 6 years into my tenure at Zoom, video really obviously took off. So I think we're at where we are today because of that comfort level that comes with being forced into a whole lot of video, more than I had ever experienced. I was saying earlier that we were in the office 5 days a week before the pandemic, so this whole remote thing was new to even us at Zoom. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey. I think went through the acquisition of WebEx by Cisco in 2007 and stayed there for quite some time, and then joined in March of 2015 at Zoom. And It's really been about building teams, a lot of opportunity, but being ready for that hard work and that opportunity. I mean, there's definitely luck that comes with being in the right place and right time and having, the right experience for the role when Eric brought that opportunity to me. But I'm really thankful for that experience that got me to where I guess I am today.
Can you tell us, what I would really like to know is, there was that time between 2015, I guess it was in 2020, when all of a sudden it it had to have gone crazy, and I have to guess you weren't prepared for it fully. Who could ever even predict that? Will you tell us, just as you started recognizing what was about to happen, and then it happened, and how you handled that?
Yeah, it happened gradually. I think, unfortunately, like many in the U.S., you think, oh, something's happening in another country or here, and how can we help, right? How can we do our part? And little did we know what would kind of happen. Even when we shut our doors in early March, we thought, oh, we'll be back in a few weeks. That didn't happen. But it was gradual, right? So it started on the education front. We saw a ton of demand in different countries around the world, and we had no possible way of even serving these customers fast enough, so we made the decision to remove the 40-minute limit in over 25 countries, over 125,000 different domains, schools, if you will, districts, and I think almost 1 trillion meeting minutes by the time we came out of it. So it happened fast, like slow and fast. It's hard to kind of explain. It was gradual, but we also, as a business, went from 2,400 employees roughly in March of 2020 to over 8,000 at this point. So that kind of scale and growth in such a short period of time had its own unique challenges.
Would you tell us specifically, we have a past president, we have president-elects from all over the country here. What's one particular thing you learned or might do different, or that was an aha moment in that quick growth? When you hired all of a sudden you're the marketing director or CMO, and all of a sudden you've got 4 times the number of staff selling product.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that even when we came in, when Eric started the business, people were like, this has already been done before. What are you doing? Why are you going into this mature market? And he saw that he was solving a need, like customers weren't happy, and so he created a product that took the friction out of what he had been experiencing. And so the simplicity was absolutely key. And if I think back to all the hardest moments, whether it was over the past 2 years or any other time in my life, I think just how do you put one foot in front of the other and really just make gradual change and really focus on what you can control. I think that's one of the big things. I definitely feel like I don't get work. It takes a lot to get me worked up over much these days. I think, this too shall pass is something that I say quite a bit. And I think you just have to be as practical, as simple as possible when you're going through any kind of situation.
And how about hiring then and even hiring now? How was the hiring that go to you back when you had to have the staff up like that? Was that another department, and were you just demanding that you needed more people, or were you actually involved in the hiring? And how did you find people?
Yeah, very involved in the hiring. Goodness, even when we started the company, we didn't bring on recruiters for a very long time. We kind of really encouraged all of our leaders for different functions and departments to think about it as their own business and to manage the hiring for their department. And so we really relied on referrals of our employee base. I think at one point we had hit over 50% of our employees were a referral, and they were very loyal and wonderful employees. Obviously, as we scaled up to those numbers I referenced before, we now have an incredible recruiting arm. But we have always, I've said we were profitable before it was cool. We always thought about the money that we took on as being our investors' money, not our own, and we would spend it really, really wisely. And so we always took a more pragmatic, I think, and paranoid view to bringing on employees. We had been through times, both Eric and I at past companies where, you ended up almost with seasons of layoffs and all these other things, and we were deathly afraid. We said, we don't want that to be as much as in our control. We're obviously going through a lot of really difficult, as many economic, headwinds these days. And so for us, I think that practical nature and staying consistently paranoid brought us to bring in. We always think about our talent as what kind of capability, what new. I think if you solve for what you need with just hands and feet and warm bodies, that's not a sustainable business model. And so we really think about what is the talent going to bring in and hire that way. So very involved.
These president-elects here, they're taking on a big task, and you used the word consistently paranoid. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. Look, Zoom wouldn't be where it is today if there was more paranoia of somebody. We're constantly thinking that there could be some business that could come in and remove friction that you may have in your Zoom experience. So you can't rest on your laurels. You have to be reinventing yourself, your business. I mean, I wouldn't be Zoom CMO today, almost 8 years later, if I hadn't constantly, focused on learning, finding really smart people for things that I didn't know. I had never led an organization like Zoom through what it had, but I really relied on networks and very smart people to help, with great advice. And we really try and instill also in our employees. We have a program where you can expense any book for you and your family, no questions asked. We don't care what the topic is, but self-learning, that self-motivation is really critical for our company.
And things have slowed down, I have to guess. I mean, the craziness has slowed down for you.
It has not.
It has not. Talk about that, because I wanted to see has your management style changed after that, and now it's a little bit less, isn't it? Or talk to me.
It's just different, right? I think it's different. We recently launched a new advertising campaign last week that helps to kind of show the breadth of the platform. And so it's really transforming what we were to where we are now. We talk a lot about, like, we were thrown into the NBA finals as a JV high school like basketball player, right? And so now it's like a lot of fundamentals, thinking about building the business, like ensuring that you have the right process where process is needed versus overkill, right? All of those things that you have to just make sure. It's just a different point. And it is a massive transition, I think, that we're going through. We're operating in so many countries that maybe we didn't exist in before. We have different challenges, right? In the beginning, it was around awareness. We had this wonderful flywheel with this great product, and we wanted to be there in the preference for folks when they needed more, right? And that then drove revenue for the business. But today, right, most people know that Zoom equates to video, so the job's changed, right? It's about the perception of what more you can do with the platform, and so it's different. But going back, I have a tolerance, right? Like you find excess capacity, like when you have kids and such, that you just didn't know you had before. So that'd probably be the one thing.
So you'll be happy to hear that in 1986 we allowed women into Rotary for the first time. I think it was.
All right.
And so we've done well since then. But I wanted to ask you about, you have a new branding campaign, and a lot of us are going through transition now too. Rotary has changed a lot, but it's going to change again because of this whole new normal we're in right now. We're all struggling with, do we cut Zoom out of our meetings and make people come, or do we still have hybrids? And I'm curious about a new branding campaign and how that might apply to some of us here relative to bringing in new members and getting the word out about the great things Rotary does.
I don't think it's an either or, but I also don't think anyone's talking about hybrid the right way. It's kind of like you got to do physical really well, and then like digital experiences really well. But you need like those people to be able to connect. So that's the one plug I would say. I was saying before too, I was in the office 5 days a week, and we had a stellar business before the pandemic, right? And so I think it's just different. I don't believe that humans are meant to be in their home offices by themselves all the time, whatever that home office might look like. I personally get my energy from other folks, right? And so I think I do my job better when I think I'm a better mother, wife, daughter, all of these things when I am able to kind of be around people. And so I think you have to find a balance. Look, you're gonna have to do what works. We're having a real difficult time as many of, how do you pull those employees into the office? I try and describe it as like, we need to make our offices like a kick-ass hotel lobby, right? Like make it somewhere they really want to go. What they're not going to want to do is go in and work by themselves. And so you have to think about being really intentional with your time. And I think it's summed up to people want to be where they want to be when they want to be there. I really think it's as practical as that. And so if you can make your offices somewhere that people want to be, then that's great. So if I think about the campaign and such, we're so excited for this. I mean, we have other wonderful products. Zoom rooms are one of my favorite things if any of you use the conference room technology. I forgot how much I love that. Like, I can't sit in front of my computer screen, 10 hours a day. It's just, I need a change in the environment. Our phone product, we recently launched contact center offerings to really bring video into what really has been historically really cold telephone experiences. So there's a lot of really interesting products and offerings that really, our chat, I love our chat, right? Not everything has to be a meeting. I decline every meeting I possibly can, right? My goal is to have days without meetings, but it doesn't mean that I'm not talking to people and jumping on video, chats and all the rest of it. So I think it's just having a really well-rounded approach to the way you think about communications, I think is key.
So I'm curious about, the word Zoom is ubiquitous with video conferencing. And to me, thinking about my business, I wish my business was ubiquitous for engineering. But my question is, so I look at you as thinking, wow, that's really a great position relative to the competition. But I will tell you that my company, and I don't have the control I used to have, but my company standardized around Teams. Now I still use Zoom for all my customer meetings because it's pretty good.
Yeah, it is, I agree.
Yeah. But how are you dealing with that now that the competition is definitely creeping in, and how are you dealing with that? And I'm going to frame that against all of us are having issues with, we have competition, we have image, and so if you could expound on that a little, I'd appreciate it.
I think it's the same philosophy that we've always had, and why the company was started is you focus in on a great customer experience and removing the friction out of their day. And so there's always been competition, right? It was different competition when we started than where we are now. Competition's healthy. I can tell you, I don't want to work at a company that doesn't have a lot of competition, right? Move on out, go into a category that's growing and changing and evolving. And so I think competition's healthy. And what we hear over and over and over again from some of the largest CIOs in the country, I mean, Fortune 1, Walmart level CEOs, they're saying, we choose Zoom. And that's something, as I thought about, the work that we released last week, that's multiple quarters worth of work, right? That takes a lot, probably almost a year in the making to make that kind of a shift. And what they said is, don't lose the humanity. Like, don't lose who you are, and that choice, right? And some of our competition people don't feel like they have much choice, right? It's something that they were handed, or they feel like they've ended up with. We always want to be the technology that folks choose, and I think if you focus in on that and what problem you're solving, you'll be okay.
I'd like to have some, I know there's got to be a lot of questions in the audience, so do you have the microphones ready to be asking questions? Okay, you do, good. I'm gonna turn it over to anyone who has a question. You want to come up here? He's not seeing you.
Hi, you just talked about competition, and I'm thinking back as far as you can go pre-pandemic. You're up against these giants, Skype, Google Hangout, Microsoft Teams. How did you maneuver around these giants to dominate this market segment?
Yeah, I think early on I felt like I had, there was two key charters. One was to create a preference for the brand. We want you to choose us. Prefer when you have that need. And the other was always around validation. I think a lot about third-party validation, and I know that spans way past our category. We could go around saying how simple, how easy to use, how reliable we were. but it meant a whole lot more when a customer would say it or the analyst community would say it. So we definitely leaned into that early on. Today, I think that still holds true. And look, I believe whether you're thinking about small businesses who are incredibly loyal, I mean, one of the most loyal customer bases out there, all the way up into the enterprise, you also want to work with people that you can trust, folks that you feel like if you have an issue, someone's going to be there to listen. I can't tell you how many times we had info at Zoom. It no longer exists in the same way, but for the longest time, myself, Eric, a few other folks from the leadership team were on there, and Eric was like, I don't know what to do. I'll respond to customers, and then they say I'm lying, that I can't possibly be Eric. Like, they could not believe that the CEO was sending them an email back when they just had a random challenge on like how to reboot their computer. And so that's who I think you are as a core. If you stay focused on that, then it works out. Like we've just always believed that revenue follows a great customer experience. And I can tell you in my time at a few different companies, a lot of folks talk about that, but then they don't actually put in the work. So it's thinking about what does putting in the work mean for having a really great customer experience versus just, having it be lip service.
Janine, thank you very much. All the way in the back, Kevin from Toledo, Ohio.
Hi.
First of all, I have a suggestion for a feature of the
Please.
app. And then I'll ask my question. So I started paying for the app right out of the gate, which meant that I did not have meetings limited to 40 minutes. But there's some people that I would like that feature to still be enabled for.
Yep. Ooh, this comes up on Twitter a lot.
Just saying, it'd be nice if you guys would cancel the meeting early instead of me having to come up with a sick kid or something that has me bailing.
There's a stopwatch you can do, and then we also have this fund we put into place for Zoom apps. So we're trying to invest in, and we believe in a great ecosystem when you really think about being a platform, and there are some killer apps right now that help to do just that, so check them out.
So sure. my question is around, I saw the tipping point for you guys pretty early was you gave away the product to teachers.
Yeah.
And that's the market that immediately needed it maybe the most, and you could have made a fortune on them having paid for it, but you gave it away.
Yeah.
And I think as Rotary clubs, we don't want to give away our product, but I'm curious if you could kind of recount that conversation and how you guys decided to give away the product to the market that maybe needed it most to try and build what you were doing.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I know this is going to sound like cheesy and it can't possibly be, but I mean, Eric and I would just have these conversations. So there's no other option. Like, I mean, really, it just made no sense to do anything else. And even if we had decided, like, great, we're going to pay for it, we're going to give it away for 5 cents a user, or whatever it is, we couldn't have even done that in time, right? Like, it wouldn't have even, like, the infrastructure, everything it would have taken, and it just felt like noise. And that was never our target market. We talk a lot about focus. That's the other, if I think about some of, like, our core tenets as a business, focus has always been key for us. Opening the product, for teachers and for students, it was like, okay, well, we're in business, to run professionals, enterprises, their communications, and we have a technology that can help a whole lot of people, and it's great when you talk a lot about, like, the core. I also oversee our philanthropy with Zoom Cares, and you realize that corporations and businesses are still just made up of people. They're still just made up of people, and it felt really good looking back on that to know that when the going gets tough, that a business can make the right decision. I'll tell you, that's all it was. That's all it was. It's the right thing to do.
Janine. Good afternoon, Eric Ellison, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. User of your product, multiple license, love the Zoom rooms, love the Zoom phones.
Thank
Product's
you.
dynamite. Lesser known feature, huddle rooms, dynamite even though video's hot.
Yep.
Huddle rooms are great.
Yep.
My question is specifically around your marketing background, multiple corporations, agencies versus in-house. I'm just curious where you are and maybe how you've seen that change and what you see it going to moving forward.
It's a great question. There's no one like right fit, I think. My preference has always been to do as much in-house as possible. Going back to the competencies, like I always, you know, and I've done it big, small over the years. We actually worked with a remarkable agency, 72 and Sunny, on the work that we just released. But I always felt like if it was an employee of the company, like they're just gonna care a little bit more, they're gonna move a little faster, they're gonna look at the media buys with like a little more scrutiny. But yet, I think the value that we saw recently and what I've seen in prior years is you also can have access when you need it and you don't need to scale up by bringing in those specific. Like I think there is something to be said for folks who are just the masters at their craft and subject matter experts. So I think when you need to scale up quickly or do something that's outside of your core kind of competency, your core subject matter expertise, then an agency can be great. But I think it depends on where you are as a business, what the job is, and what you're trying to accomplish, and also what resources you have at your disposal, right? That's going to also play into that decision making. Yeah.
Before you start, President Sell, I'm not keeping time. So I'm sure. Okay, good. Because I've got 100 questions, so.
Hi, Janine. My name is Matt Bell. I'm a member of this Rotary Club of San Jose. You know, you've got a room full of community servants here from all around the U.S. You mentioned a little bit about Zoom Cares. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what Zoom is doing in the community and a little bit about its philanthropy? And then a second question, probably a little harder. When are you going to join Rotary?
Oh, okay. All right. I'll start with the first. Oh, goodness. Okay. Now I'm off track. Repeat that first part of the question. I want to make sure I answer appropriately. Yeah. Oh, philanthropy, yes. I can talk about this all day. Okay, so I can go into like all the areas that we focus on many, but I think one of the things that I've tried to bring to the table is like a lot of organizations, and especially at the scale that we're at today, can write a check. I think we always try and lead with our technology. And obviously we saw, I don't think there's any greater calling or any impact that I or any organization can ever make greater than what our product has been able to do for so many. So always lead with the product. I also think there's something that's pretty untapped, and I'm trying to a little bit of a call to action for others out there that have the capabilities, but to leverage our employees, like the knowledge base. There's so many folks that are so smart in their different areas, and there's so many businesses that could really utilize that talent. So really working to think about like, you know, how do you connect your employees or your own areas of interest in with those that need it? So some kind of marketplace, if you will, for that. And then the other is really about obviously monetary contributions and such, and that, you know, I still think education, I was saying this morning, one of our first checks as a business, I think our very first check came from a higher ed institution, and it was one of our early adopter industries. And so education has always been at the core. I believe too, knowledge is power, even what I was saying about our employee base and our book program. And so I think there's so much that can be learned you know, by education. I think a lot of when you think about like ignorance, like you think about the definition. It's like knowledge is power, and so how can we enable that? So that's what we're really trying to do with the Zoom Cares Foundation. And the Rotary. I will follow up. Yes, absolutely.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Arthur Weisbrod from San Jose. I'm sure Zoom is thinking about it. What is the technology that will replace what Zoom is now doing? What's the next generation in this sort of office communication that you see? And I've talked to Carl, and he's willing to sponsor you for our Rotary Club.
Oh, so wonderful. I think you have to continue to look at your technology and reinvent it. What I said about staying paranoid. So for us, you know, it doesn't have to be a meeting. It can be a chat. It can be a phone call. You know, I'll tell you too, we made a lot of marketing videos at even my prior life where we were throwing meetings onto the desktop. You know, you come in late from your car and you automatically go from your mobile to your desktop. Like, you can actually do that today with Zoom, which I think is just so cool because we've been talking about it for so long as an industry, and it really is wonderful. But I think about communications, a lot of like chat providers, for example, out there talk about, oh, like email is dead. Like, email's not dead. Like, I don't know, it's not going anywhere, right? But it also hasn't really evolved in a very long time. So we're really like, our focus as a business is like, just how do you bring all those communications together? And it doesn't have to always be a video. It can be chat, and it can be a phone call, and it can end up in a video, and that's great. And so I think it's also just, you know, ensuring that you're thinking about the ways in which people communicate in our instance, and then staying in front of that and continuing to disrupt yourself. Yeah.
Back in the back.
Hi, good afternoon. Janica Clem here with the San Jose Rotary. Back to philanthropy and CSR, and I just want to say it is totally appropriate, and you should absolutely be fine, all corporations should, with writing the check. That it is great to invest. We talk a lot about employee involvement, about using our technology, which is fantastic, and I want to see more of our employees get involved, but we really need to do some community-focused investing. So I would like to know what Zoom has done both here locally and also at the national level when it comes to your treasure as well.
Yeah, so we do write a lot of checks, I'll say that as well, but I also don't like, we hear over and over again that like it can't just be that. So when we do think about writing that check, it is also working with our employees, volunteering. Volunteering is a great place. I'll tell you, I said earlier that it's really hard to get folks back into the office. You do some kind of partnering on a volunteer activity, you're getting folks in. Physically. I mean, it's a great way to engage your employees. And so our headquarters, like he mentioned, is 3 blocks away. So we've done a lot in this area. But then we also try and think about where are employees around the globe. So we have programs that are globally relevant. We have programs that are regionally relevant. And then we still want to do things that are very micro in the communities. And so I think if you think about it in those 3 ways, we earmark a certain amount of funds for natural disasters, for things that you can't expect, whether it's a rise in homelessness or a hurricane or flooding. So we make sure that we can always, a fire, right? We've experienced those in the Bay Area and in California, you know, in an exceptional capacity over these past few years. So I would say it's ensuring that you have enough to do retroactively, and then you programmatically think about your you know, couple of years to come and where you're going to focus. For us, it's really around education, it's around social responsibility, and that's where we focus. We also have what we call a happy crew. So this is a complete volunteer organization meant to drive culture within the organization, and we give them some power in terms of where we take our CSR funds and implement them in the communities that we have employees in. Yeah.
Hi there, I'm Maggie Padavani. Nice to meet you.
You too.
So, from a PR perspective, you know, in the old days, PR people had to go on press tours.
Yes.
And go to Boston and New York, whatever. I assume that you work with the editorial community via Zoom mostly, or do you do any live meetings with the PR, with the press at any time, or how do you manage that since you're Zoom?
Both. Both is how we manage it. We have, we actually just did an analyst conference in August here at the Valencia Hotel in the Bay Area, and we brought, I think it was 42 of the top analysts in our space together in person. But we also had folks that weren't able to travel in person. So for every single one of the presentations we did over the couple of days, we made sure that we had at least one of our speakers that was remote. And so it was truly a hybrid experience. And I use that word sparingly. Yeah. Yes.
Do you work with Partner Group?
Yes.
Subscribe to their services?
Yes,
then?
we have for many, many years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're up.
Madam CMO, Nicholas Adams, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much for your commitment to our global community, but as Zoom continues to grow, thank you for doubling down on our community of San Jose and maintaining your global headquarters in our great city. It's great to see that. You alluded to something earlier in a past comment around surrounding yourself with and by individuals who are really smart. Do you consider that to be some of your secret sauce? Individuals who are smarter than I am type folks. And who are those individuals? Who's got your ear?
Oh goodness, I mean, anybody I can learn from. I mean, these aren't the folks that have the most prominent titles or prominent jobs. I mean, these are folks that have passion, would be the number one thing that I see. I learn a lot from our early stage employees that are pretty fresh, maybe one, first job, second job. Learn a lot from those individuals. I also think folks outside of my comfort zone and what I do. So obviously scaling through the pandemic and comms and all the rest of it, I brought on some people with some pretty killer titles to help me out there. But I'll tell you, running the business, I think about folks that are outside of my realm, spending time with our sales team, spending time with our engineers, like really understanding areas that are outside of what I know and what I consider to be my subject matter expertise. And so I just think about myself as a sponge. Like, I'll learn something from a question I get asked today, and it'll stick with me. But I wouldn't say there's like one mentor, or I get that question a lot, like, who's the mentor? And I'm like, there isn't one person. It's just, it could be somebody that I'm walking down the street with, and I think being open to learning at times that you don't expect it is something that I've tried to really try to capitalize on those moments. Like, slowing down a little bit might be some of that, and really like smelling the roses. Like, there's something to be said from that.
Hi, David from Baton Rouge. I'm curious from a marketing perspective.
I can repeat if you can.
You can repeat it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
From a marketing perspective, what was it like in the war room when Zoom bombing became a term?
Oh, that was fun. Yeah, the war room, when Zoom bombing was going on. Look, it was awful. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. And terrible for so many reasons. It really was some unfortunate things that happened. I would say it just went back to, this is where I still am very close with our engineers and our product teams. Look, we had use cases we never could have expected, ever, right? And it's not even like much of our product was built differently than most of our industry. We were just held at a different standard because of the types of use cases that you think about healthcare, education, all these minors, all the rest of it. But we weren't built for a whole bunch of minors also to be using the product. And so I think we just focused in on how can we take the challenge we were seeing, because you could say Zoom bombing and there was probably 30 other things that we were dealing with in a given month at that point. But just what is the challenge? How are we going to fix it? We were very execution oriented. And we, the other was being incredibly transparent. I can't believe I haven't mentioned this yet today. This is the number one thing, if you take away, is transparency is key. If I think about even a lot of what we went through early on in the pandemic, I can't even believe the sentiment, our customers, the way they rally around, because we just honest, transparent, timely. And if you think about really listening to the customer, acting with an immense sense of urgency. You know that something's in your control to change or fix, you do it, right? And that's what we did. And then you be transparent and you talk about it. Like, it really is very simple. But those three, that triangle doesn't really, I think, get talked about enough.
Hello, Tim Hagstrom, San Jose Club. I'm going to follow up on the question that Arthur Weisbrod asked earlier about the future of meeting platforms. Several years ago, Cisco built a prototype of a meeting platform using holograms of the participants.
Yep.
Is Zoom doing anything like that? Is there a future in that?
I like real people. I think there's something to be said for real people. I don't know. It depends on the use case. You know, I got asked this in an interview now that I'm thinking about it a couple of years ago. I didn't have a good answer then either. But yeah, I think the key is we're investing a lot in AI. But you also have to balance that with the privacy and security, right? Humans you expect, especially digital, you expect certain experiences, right? Like, why are they asking me that question? Why are they showing me that homepage? Well, they can only augment that experience if they know a little bit about you, which is okay as long as you say it and you're clear with how you're using people's information and data and all the rest of it. So going back to that transparency piece. But I think we have to be open to what that's going to look like. There may be use cases going into dangerous situations that if you can do that in a way that doesn't involve putting a human there, great. But I don't know exactly what that would look like. I mean, our focus right now is really on the communications for real people in real time. But we're going to stay open to what could come.
I have a love and hate relationship with Zoom.
Okay.
My name is Bert George,
All right.
and I'm in the wine business. And we had a beautiful wine reception last night, and I'm a people person like you, and it's something you have to do in person. I did so many Zoom wine tastings, I hated it. I had to smile for an hour because everybody's looking at me from all over the country. It was ridiculous. I didn't like it. But my love is not going to the doctor anymore, and what you've done for the health field, that is the best, and thank you for that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that could be a whole topic in itself, right? The wine and Zoom and the pandemic. Yeah.
Hi, Janine. Steve Borkenhagen, San Jose Club. You could have your office anywhere in the world. Why are you in downtown San Jose?
Why? It's just so great, you know, and I'll tell you, we had some board members who live up the peninsula, and we were in this little, it was kind of in the shadow of the old WebEx building, which was really interesting, off Great American Parkway when I first started. And I mean, the place was tiny. I mean, like they were gonna paint, but didn't. There was like masking tape still up, and there was no baseboards. And so we were kind of stealth going out, you know, because we didn't want them to know that we were going to find another office, right? And Eric brought a couple of us over here, and it was an old CPA firm, I believe, that was on the 6th floor was our first floor in those buildings, and it had all the big cherry wood furniture, which I'm sure some of you in this room know about, that housed a lot of, you know, physical files and such, which we had no use for. We just didn't, but we thought, okay, we don't have to pay for furniture, so Eric's like, keep it. And I think we ended up getting rid of some of it on Craigslist, and I don't know what we used the money for, happy hours or something over the years. But I remember getting asked, are you guys gonna be able to find talent? And I was so offended. I'm like, why, because we're not in San Francisco? I'm like, I don't like going up to San Francisco. And so we looked at Eric, and we just nodded, so we're gonna be just fine. We're gonna be just fine with talent down here, and we love it. I mean, I can't think of another place that would have made more sense then or now. And that was before. I mean, that was 8 years ago or so that decision was made. So I just think it's such a thriving area, and I know longer format conversation around what's happening with the communities and getting people back into the offices and the rest of it. But yeah, we just love it down here. So we've never thought about doing anything else. Yep.
We got time for one more question. Anybody?
Okay. Well, I don't really have a question, but I just want to make a little rebuttal here. I'm Douglas Smith. I run the Whiskey Education Foundation. I do virtual whiskey tastings with people across the country. I love it. It's expanded my business. I get to drink with people across the country, and I just love it.
Great to hear.
Janine, I just wanted to, I'm going to ask you for one last tip if you would like to give it to us, but I just want to tell you, I can't thank you enough. I mean, Zoom, there isn't anyone here who doesn't use the term Zoom 10 times a day, and it's nice to see a three-dimensional Zoom person. It's really nice. Yeah.
It's great, thank you.
And I will tell you, in speaking for all these Rotarians, we appreciate so much you taking the time to come here, and I will sponsor you if you ever want to join.
Thank you, that means a lot. Thank you for having me.
All right, so thank you, Carl, for keeping up with Janine. And Janine, I'd like to thank you for coming and speaking to all these people. On your behalf, we have made a contribution to San Jose Jazz's Jazz Aid Fund to help keep musicians working and creating here in our community. And we also have this gift for you, which includes a little something from Bert George. Okay, we've got a little housekeeping to go through. First, let's see, let me get my next slide up. So next week, for those of you who are in the Rotary Club of San Jose, we go, I'll start with the Large Club Conference. So up next, we're gonna have a break for about 15 minutes, and then we're going back to the other room for our group session on DEI. So we'll be seeing you there at 1:30. Please be prompt, it'll be fun, it'll be interesting, maybe more interesting than fun, we'll see. And of course, following that, you're gonna have time for executive directors and president-elects to have some one-on-one time. And then we have our evening event. We'll be gathering in the lobby at about 4:15, and buses will be leaving at 4:45. You do not want to miss the buses, no? 4:10. 4:10 to 4:30. Okay, so buses are going to leave at 4:30. So don't miss that. Forget 4:45. 4:30. Or you're going to be calling people and saying, how do I Uber there? So, and then we'll be back here tonight. For club members, next week we are back to normal, not here. We're back at the Rotary Summit Center next Wednesday, where we'll be hearing from Robert Massey, the new General Director of Symphony San Jose, and Shauna Lucy, the new General Director of Opera San Jose, about saving the classical arts. So I'm looking forward to that. And for everyone here, oh, let's clap for that. We want to save the arts, right? And for everyone here, I hope to see you at our barbecue tomorrow. Remember, barbecue tomorrow at 6 p.m. at History Park. Those of you who are part of the conference, we'll be bussing you over. 5 p.m. Why am I getting all the times wrong? Thank you, Matt. 5 p.m. Don't worry, those of you who are on buses, we're going to get you where you need to go. Everybody else, we'll see you at History Park tomorrow, 5 p.m. You know what a good time it is. And with that, I think that's it. So let's keep the good times rolling. We'll see you in a while.